marital harmony. When the towels wear out. Author Paul Gordon and his wife Beverly will discuss the biblical principles of a healthy marriage. That's coming up on The Good Life. Welcome to The Good Life, viewers. I'm so glad that you chose to join us today. My name is Barbara Beck, and I am excited to welcome back some good friends of ours, good friends to The Good Life and good friends personally who have written, actually Paul, the husband, has written a great book on marriage, and I'm just ready to kind of kick back and to talk about some strategies to how to have a great marriage and one that continues to be vibrant. You know, the other day I was at an event and somebody, a cute young couple, came up to my husband and then later came up to me separately and asked us what the secret to a good marriage was. Well, all I wanted to know is, what did my husband say before I opened my mouth? And they said, Jesus Christ. He said, Jesus Christ is the secret to a great marriage. And I said, absolutely. And in addition to that is a commitment to that marriage. You know, people see us and they think, well, you guys have been married 40 years. You're on easy street now. I want to talk to you about Easy Street later on, because there is no such thing. Well, on today's program, viewers, I'm excited to welcome back good friends Paul and Beverly Gordon. Paul has written an inspirational book about marital harmony entitled, and you can relate to this, When the Towels Wear Out, and boy, do they ever. Paul and Beverly Gordon, welcome to The Good Life.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here with us.
Good to be here.
You ready to kick back?
Sure,
I
absolutely.
think we need to kick back and get really comfortable and talk about what makes a successful marriage. Because like I started to say in the opening, people look at my husband Tommy and me and think, okay, you guys have been married 40 years, things are really easy now, right? Mm-hmm. And my response to them, Paul, is no, it never necessarily gets easy, because there continue to be challenges that come our way. We now have grandchildren, we have an empty nest, we have all of the challenges of everyday life, so it is never easy. Would you agree with that, or am I weird?
Oh, you're right. I'd agree with that, because it's an ongoing thing. Mm-hmm. It's not something that you just put behind you and now you just cruise. Because I heard years ago this man and woman who had been married 65 years, and somebody said, what's the secret? And he said, the secret is getting past the first 60 years. He said, if you can do that, then you got it made.
That is too cute. That might have been my dad. My mom and dad were married for 65 years before my dad went to meet Jesus in heaven.
And my parents the same, exactly the same number.
Praise God for that. Yeah. Isn't that a wonderful legacy that they left behind?
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that those 65 years were necessarily easy. Mm-hmm. And I plenty of times saw my parents in disagreement. My kids have unfortunately seen my husband and myself in disagreement. Mm-hmm. But what was there, I guess, Beverly and Paul, is a deep commitment to stay together through the thick and the thin. Beverly, how long have you all been married?
We will be married 47 years in June.
47 years. Do you remember?
I was 3 and he was 5.
Yeah, I was going to say. Do you remember when your grandparents or your parents had been married for 50 years, and I thought they were so old?
They were.
Right?
Yes.
And now that's kind of like, we're getting there.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
exactly.
It goes by fast.
It does go by fast. And tell me about your children. Beverly.
Well, we have 2 daughters. One of them is a midwife, and she lives in Phoenix, Arizona. She's 40 years old, and she has 6 children.
What?
Yes. We told her she did not have to practice what she preaches, but she does.
She did anyway.
Yes. She has a 19-year-old and all the way down to a 15-month-old.
What a blessing.
And then our other daughter is a college professor. She works at Lake Sumter Community College, and she has 3 children. She and her husband, John, live in Mineola.
Well, they've got a lot of work to do to catch up with daughter number 1.
Well, I think they don't want to catch
They're
up.
not catching up. 9 grandchildren, that's a pretty full quiver. That's nice.
Well, the last of those 6 was a surprise.
You're talking about the baby
Yes.
at 40 years old, or she was what, 38 or 9 when
she was
had
39.
She told her mother, she said, do you know how old I'm going to be when this one leaves home?
Now listen, Paul, I went that route as well, and ours was not a surprise. We worked for 14 years to have baby number two. Baby number one came pretty fast and was a big blessing in our marriage. So I tell people that we have had two only children, and there are challenges to having only children. Were you really?
Yeah,
how far apart?
they're 10 years apart. One's 30 and one's 40.
How about that? And did you try the whole time too? You know, that's a great lesson for our viewers today in perseverance. And really, I tell people all the time, the desire of my heart was to have more children in our home. And I knew in my heart that that was going to happen at some point. And so when I finally got pregnant at 39 with daughter number 2, people said, boy, you must have been really surprised. And I say, no, she was not a surprise. She had been prayed for 14 years. So God blesses us with the desires of our heart.
Exactly.
All right, talk to us about marriage, Paul.
Well, okay, the fact is I counsel married couples. I put a sign out when I was pastor of the First Baptist of Apopka. We put a sign out on the sign that said, free marriage counseling.
Wow.
We were inundated with people calling, wanting marriage counseling. So, but I've had husbands to come in and say things like, well, this is the way I am, and I'm not going to change. Things like that. Or sometimes a wife will be counseling her alone, and she'll say, our marriage is in shambles. Then you get the husband in there alone, and he says, everything's fine. Yeah. They do that, you know.
Two different perspectives.
And so husbands have to humble themselves and actually go to the wife and say, what am I doing that I need to change? That takes humility.
Yes.
He needs to put his ego aside. And the wife needs to be gentle when she tells him what's wrong with him. And they need to just simply have an ongoing thing where they just have decided to be what the other person wanted.
Right.
Because that's what happened to us. We were both young people, Christian people, wanting to serve the Lord. But at the end of about 2 years, my wife was disappointed in the kind of person that I was. I wasn't the wonderful, sensitive husband that I should have been. And I was disappointed in her. So at the 4-year point, that's when I noticed the towels were starting to wear out, that we both just decided, okay, if I'm not what you wanted, I will become that person.
Wow. Well, see, right there, stop right there, because
Yeah.
that's what the difference is. Some people would have said, Paul, if I'm not what you want, then I'm out of here, and you
Yeah.
can find what you want.
Oh, yeah.
What made you committed to staying in that relationship and working?
Well, God.
We made a promise.
Yeah.
Yes.
A vow.
A vow.
We decided not to trash the marriage, but to correct it. And that's what Christian people are supposed to do, you know, in the will of God. And so that's what we did. We just focused on being what the other person wanted. What is it you want me to be? And that's an ongoing thing. You know, so once in a while, you know, I see I'm irritating Beverly about something, you know, and sometimes I don't even know what it is.
Right.
And so, okay, tell me, why are you upset with me? You know, then, okay, all right, I'll correct that.
Yeah.
You know, and she does the same thing. And so that really helps a great deal when you do
So
that.
I'm hearing humility is a great
Humility.
thing. Communication is a great thing. Commitment and love are great things as well. A lot of people will forget those other three and they'll say, oh, well, I love this person so much, everything's going to work out. Well, love sometimes isn't quite enough. It takes
Yes.
that extra commitment. Paul, let's talk just for a minute about, because you're very, very certified. You counsel people, you're a preacher, you've taught in college as well. Give us some of your credentials. What made you think you could write a book on marriage?
Well, the primary thing is just being married and attempting to be what God wanted me to be as a husband. That's the main thing. Of course, I am a college graduate and I do have a doctorate degree, and I've been a pastor for 30 years. I've taught Bible, English, and writing on the high school level and 2 Christian colleges. But really the main thing is just wanting to be what God wanted me to be. And that was what I wanted from the beginning.
Yes.
But you know, you can be blind to your own shortcomings, and that's what was true in my life.
Right. Paul, and I should be calling you Dr. Gordon.
No, you
Forgive
call me
for
Paul.
that,
Paul's fine.
Thank you. There are really different perceptions today of seeking counsel than there were maybe back when I was first married. My husband and I never sought counsel because it was an embarrassment for us to think, oh, we're not quite all we need to be. There was this perception that we were this young, kind of vibrant couple that had it all together, when in fact we did not. Do you think that there is a different kind of perspective now for people seeking counsel, that there is not the stigma that there used to be, that you go to counseling now just like you would go to get the oil changed in your car? You maintain a car. Why are we not maintaining our marriages? So are you finding more of an openness to counseling?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, it just takes a matter of humility to say, I need something, in my life, and if that's the case, then, go get it fixed, and see if somebody else can shed light on it that maybe I don't see,
Right.
in my personal life.
Right.
Sometimes other people can see things that we can't see.
That's right. That third party that's not as emotionally invested as the two of you are, or with my husband and I in our case. It would have
Yes.
been great for us to have some strategies, because what counseling does, it's not telling you what's wrong with you necessarily. It's giving you some strategies to move forward. Let's go back 47 years, Beverly. You see this great looking guy and he
That's
sees this
right.
beautiful woman. And what made you think that you could get married? What were the things that you decided would make this marriage work?
Well, first of all, the great-looking guy helped a lot.
Yes, he is.
The best thing about Paul, to me, is his integrity. It's always been that way.
Did you know that, though, 47 years ago?
I knew that whatever he did, he was trying to do the right thing.
Wow.
Now, sometimes he does things that are really stupid, but I know in his heart, he was trying to do the right
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And I can always count on that.
Yeah.
And I can always count on going to him and saying, you really messed this up. Let me talk to you about this. And he's really good about that.
Yeah. Beverly, when we first fall in love, I'm the same way, and I've heard that before. When you first fall in love with your husband or your wife, you know that you want the very best for him. He wants the very best for you. And that's the motivation that we need to remember 20 years down the road, 10 years down the road. That person loved us at one time deeply and felt like we could have an enduring relationship. Sometimes that goes away, though. Where does that go? What happens, do you think, Paul? What happens to couples?
Well, in life in general, Jesus, talking to the woman at the well, said, if you drink of this water, you'll thirst again. He said, I have some water that if you drink it, you'll never thirst. Now, let me go back to the water in Jacob's well. I have drunk water out of that well, over in Israel, and he was right. I thirsted again after I drunk the water.
Right.
And what I'm getting at is we get used to anything and everything in life, and you get used to a marriage. You can be married to the most beautiful woman in the world, but in 2 or 3 years, you're used to that beauty. You don't see it like you once did. And so in order for things to be what they ought to be, you have to work at it. You have to stop and think about how wonderful this person is that I'm married to, and think about the good parts to them and all those things to get back to what is it that attracted to them to start with.
Right, because there was an intense attraction. It's not always just necessarily a physical, chemical attraction. There's something that you're seeing in that person that makes you think there's something about that guy or that girl that's going to endure, that I'm going to want to spend the rest of my life with that person. And that's what we need to rekindle and to keep that in the forefront of our thinking if we're going to have an enduring marriage. Once again, not necessarily a marriage that's going to be easy, but one that's worth fighting for. We're going to talk when we get back from a little break. We're going to talk about what love is and the difference between the emotional kind of love and the fact that love is actually a decision. We're going to talk more with Paul and Beverly Gordon after this break, so stay with us. Welcome back to The Good Life, viewers. If you're just joining us, our special guests today are Paul and Beverly Gordon. They're talking to us about their journey to marital harmony, something that we all want. And Paul is the author of a great little book called When the Towels Wear Out, One Couple's Journey to Marital Harmony. Now, it's told by Paul. He's the author of the book. But Beverly, you are all the way throughout the book. It's obviously about 50% of it is about you and how you and Paul relate to each other. I promised our viewers that we were going to talk about the difference between this emotional, passionate feeling of love that we have, particularly when we're first married, and the fact that that kind of goes away a lot of times. What's the difference between that and the enduring kind of love, do you think, Paul?
Well, I was watching a movie the other day on television, and Clark Gable was on it, and I think
Heartthrob.
Greer Garson, and
Yes.
he was kind of a rogue in the movie.
Yeah.
And she was saying something about, why don't you get married? He said, marriage is boring. He said, I want a life that's exciting every single day. You know, there is no life like that. You know, a routine is a part of life. And what you have to do is to dedicate yourself to a person and just simply say, this is the love is a decision. It's not a feeling. That's called affection, and that's a good thing. But that's not what love is. Love is, I mean, for example, we both have a friend who married a fine banker, I think it was. Think about Wheeler. What's her name? What's her first name? I'm sorry. Vicky. And her husband was in a plane crash, and he became practically a vegetable, and she stayed with him for 30 years.
Wow.
And when he finally died, I emailed her. She's about our age. And I said, boy, you really meant it, didn't you?
Yeah.
That's what love is, because there was no affection
Right.
for 30 years, but love was the decision she made to take care of this man. And that's really what agape love, the Greek word agape, means. I am going to be concerned about your happiness, not my own. I'm not, you know, a lot of folks say I love you. What they mean is you make me happy. And you may make me happy, but love is when I dedicate myself to making you happy. And you can't have a good marriage until you get to that point that you say, I'm going to forget myself. If I get anything out of it, that's going to be great, but I'm focusing on you and what I can do to make you happy.
Paul, that sounds great, but how do we get to that point? I mean, that takes some serious maturity on our parts. How do we get there?
Well, that is it. It's something called dedication. And I love that letter that James Dobson's father wrote to James Dobson's mother just before they got married many years ago. And it's in one of his books, a couple of his books, I think. And when I first heard James Dobson read that letter on the radio, as I was driving across Nashville, Tennessee, I almost had a wreck. It was so shocking. He basically said, whatever happens, even if our marriage becomes unbearable, I am dedicating myself to you now, and I accept that as a consequence of this decision that I'm making. And so it really takes the matter of just simply saying, Lord, I'm dedicating myself to you, and if you dedicate yourself to God, you will be surprised how wonderful life can be. You know, you're not in for misery, you're in for a whole lot of blessing if you do that.
But it's a decision that we have to make, that we are going to love that person, and that love is not tied into that wonderful emotion that we all felt 47 years ago, whatever. We still can rekindle some of that from time to time, but it is mostly a decision. And Beverly, I liken it to the decision to forgive someone. We don't always feel like forgiving a spouse. We don't always feel like forgiving someone who's offended us or cut us off in traffic. And that's okay, right? Not to have that feeling.
That's exactly right.
It's a decision that we make. Can you think of times in your marriage where you've had to be intentional about forgiving, Paul?
Let me think.
When our music director wrecked my car, remember that?
Right. How about that? He says our car. He lent my car to his music director. And
well, she said before we lent it, she said, well, what if he wrecks it? And I said, well, he'll have to pay for it. Just flip it off the top of my head. Well, he did wreck it. He totaled it.
Wow.
Not on purpose.
Wow.
And then Paul said, you don't have to pay for it to him. And I'm going, my car. I'm the one that's at home with babies now.
She said, you promised. And I said, I know I did. I said, can I change my mind? I said, I really feel like the Lord doesn't want me to make it. I make more money than he does. He's the music director. I make more money.
That's great.
I feel like that I should not make him pay for that.
Right.
And here's what she said. She said, okay, you're the head of the home. I respect that. We're going to go by your decision, but I want you to know something. You're wrong.
Now, that leads us into another whole conversation, and that has to do with submission. And a lot of people have a bad understanding of what it means to submit to that husband's leadership. Beverly, maybe you can help us with that.
Well, I know that I had a difficult time with submission in the beginning. I was like everybody else, that I want my way, and everybody wants their way. And I was thinking, there is a problem with me because I can't make him do what I want him to do. And once the Lord just works in your life through the years. And about the time the towels were wearing out, or maybe a little after that, it came to me, I'm going to let him be in control. And if everything goes bad, it's going to be his fault.
That's right. And he's accountable to God, not
He's
you.
accountable to
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
And it gave me such peace and such relief that I can say, okay, we'll do it your way if that's what you want to do. But, you know, if this is a mess, this is your problem.
That's right. And then there's the thought too, Paul, that you can address, not the thought, but it's in Scripture that says we submit one to another.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the wife submits to the husband, but you have
Sure.
some duty there also to be submissive.
Well, you know, the husband always starts with that verse that says, wives, submit to the husband. But
Yeah.
if you back up just one verse,
Yeah.
it says, submit yourselves one to another. So you submit to each other. The husband submits to the wife because he loves her. In other words,
Right.
whatever she wants to do, that's fine with me. You know, the only time I object is if I think it's going to cause the family trouble, which I don't think that's ever happened. But I submit to her and to what she wants to do because I love her. Now, she submits to me for two reasons. She loves me, but she also recognizes that the Lord said that the husband's the head of the home. And but pulling rank on somebody as the head of the home, if people love each other, that practically never happens.
Right.
Because you're interested in what makes the other person happy.
That's exactly right.
And that's fine. And you know, John the Baptist they said to John, aren't you jealous of Jesus? He's baptizing more people than you are. Try to make him jealous. That's in John 3. He said, let me tell you something. I'm the best man. Jesus is the bridegroom. And I'm going to tell you what makes me happy. What makes me happy is what makes him happy. If he's happy, then that's the thrill of my life, to see him happy. And so a Christian, if they're mature, they enjoy somebody else's success. It makes them happy if somebody gets something or gets a promotion. So the husband enjoys the wife being happy. He doesn't have to have it his way all the time.
Right. And somebody helped me, Paul and Beverly, years ago with a distinction between being subservient and being submissive. And there's a big, big difference there, you know, and it's not that husband lording it over the wife and making her subservient like a doormat. It's rather that give and take where we are really blessed to be under the leadership of a godly husband in our marriages. And sometimes, Paul, you'll recognize that doesn't always happen because men are out there that are not the spiritual heads of the household. But there is success in a woman continuing to be submissive and winning her husband over to the Lord in that way.
Yes. Well, let me just say this word about that issue. There are some men that think that the greatest marriage would be if I'm the boss and she's practically the slave. You know, if I could just always tell her what to do. My foot is on her neck. He misses that wonderful, warm relationship. He will never have it if that's his attitude. There's got to be this concern for the other, not just my way all the time. And if you develop that attitude, then you're gonna get a whole lot of joy and blessing that you will never get if it's the other way.
In one of his sermons, he used to say, remember that your wife comes complete with a brain. And so you might want to use her brain as well as yours, and you might do better. So he has always treated me that way.
Like you had a brain.
Like I had a brain.
Yeah, I tell people, I say, now she actually made a little bit better grades than I did in college, but then of course, in my ego kicks in and I say, it's because I helped her with her grades.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I hope some of our precious husbands are hearing this today because it is such a great, great blessing to be that spiritual head of the household and then to be able to have the honor of being underneath that kind of leadership. So I hope and pray that that's out there. One more thing before we go. We have to close already almost, but Beverly, one of the strategies that you found to marital harmony was being thankful. Tell us really briefly that little exercise of thankfulness.
Well, a lot of times we play a game, you know, and he'll say, tell me what you're thankful for. And we go back and forth to see who can go the longest. But I was telling him on the way over here, we always get sidetracked because when we start being thankful, then we start off on a rabbit trail about remember when this happened and we reminisce and all that.
And the game never finishes.
The game never finishes.
But it's such a healthy game, and it's the right perspective of getting you into a harmonious kind of frame of thinking. And not only that, but you're honoring God. It's a form of worship to be grateful. Paul and Beverly Gordon, When the Towels Run Out, one couple's journey to marital harmony as told by Paul Gordon. Paul and Beverly Gordon, great friends of ours. If you would like more information on when the towels wear out, or perhaps perhaps you'd even like to contact Paul and Beverly. Their email address will be up on the screen for you. It is pgordon13@cfl.rr.com. Email Paul. Get a copy of the book to be able.
And they can get it on Amazon or
Yes.
Barnes & Noble.
Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or if you... Or what?
Zulon.
Or okay.
It's hard to remember Zulon. That's the publisher.
That's right. That's right. But if you would like to contact us at the station, you can get a copy of the book from us as well, or we'll at least direct you to a place where you can get that book, because it is a wonderful reminder of, it's a success story is basically what it is. A couple who's been married for 47 years and helping us with strategies to know how to have the most abundant, victorious life in Christ as a married couple that we can have. You know, one thing that I have done, and I want to encourage all of you to do as well, is to pray for the future spouse of your children and your grandchildren. I did that from the time my babies were in my womb. I prayed for their future husbands to be godly men who would love my baby girls like Christ loved the church. It happened with daughter number 1. I have a wonderful son-in-law, and I am praying that it happens for baby number 2. She's 21 and doesn't have that young man yet in a marital relationship. Maybe she's dating him now. I don't know yet. But it is something that we need to pray about. And remember to pray for those grandchildren as well. It's so important. And speaking of prayer, viewers, if you need some prayer today, we have a connection helpline that someone will be there to answer your call and to pray with you right there on the line, 1-800-884-0585. If you'd like to call us here at the station for prayer, we want you to feel good about that and knowing that we are a faithful ministry who will pray with you and for you. You can write in your prayer request to 31 Skyline Drive in Lake Mary, Florida, or you can call us with the phone number on the screen, email us at info@tv45.org, or go to our website, goodlife45.org. There's a place there where you can donate to our ministry. Please remember that we are a ministry in need of funding every single day. It costs us money to run this station, but what a blessing it is to be able to offer you what we call the very best in Christian and family programming. And we're a ministry that reaches the world with the gospel of Christ. So feel good about investing in us at Good Life 45. We love you, and we're so thankful to have so many of you who write to us every single day or who call and want prayer. It is our honor and our great privilege to be able to pray for you. So please feel good about that. There's a final scripture today, viewers, that we would like to offer you to encourage you in your walk with the Lord, and this is the love chapter, 1 Corinthians 13, verses 6 and 7, which say, "Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres." I know that you heard that word always in there. Our prayer for you is to have godly relationships in your home, in your family, in your marriages. We thank you for being a part of our Good Life 45 family. And until next time, we hope to see you again right back here on The Good Life. Goodbye and God bless.